Spirit of Texas, Historic Indians, 1500 AD to present day. When Christopher Columbus discovered an island near the Americas, he named the inhabitants Indians. Notice that the word India makes up the first 5 letters of the name. Columbus was confused and thought he had sailed to and found an island in the East Indies, so he incorrectly identified the people on the island as citizens of the Indian Islands, or Indians. The people who were living at that time throughout the North, Central, South America, and the Caribbean were of course not part of the Indies, but in fact were descendants of those brave families who courageously came to this new land thousands of years before the European explorers arrived. Once Europeans began to settle and explore the land we now call Texas, they also began to meet and observe the Native Americans who had been living in the area since their great migration from Asia. These native groups were found living in the many different geographical regions of Texas, and were equally different in their lifestyles and languages. The European newcomers were fascinated with the citizens of the new land, and wrote down observations to share with society back home. Fortunately, this gave us a much clearer picture and insight into the lives of early Native Americans. Prior to these writings, only tools, pottery, cave paintings, and other artifacts provided clues to their lifestyle. With these written records, the historic period began. One of the Native American groups encountered by early European explorers were the Caddo Indians. As mentioned earlier in the unit, this particular tribe was present even during the prehistoric times, building ceremonial mounds and establishing early agricultural societies. The Caddo were advanced in their tools and farming techniques, resulting in an excellent food supply. This sophisticated technology for that time meant that the Caddo could live in more permanent communities and had no need to pick up their entire village to chase their next meal. It also meant more time to spend on building their culture and society, providing a fascinating story for us to study today. The Caddos lived in East Texas in the Piney Woods region. They first made contact with explorers as early as 1541, when some of Hernando de Soto's men came across these Native Americans. The French explorer La Salle also met with the Caddo during his time in Texas. The Caddos are found to be a successful and advanced society. 3 distinct Caddo groups lived in the area: the Natchitoches in the northwest corner of Louisiana, the Caddo in northeast Texas, and the Hassanai who lived farther south near the original Caddo mounds. It is said when early explorers met with the Hassanai, the Indians greeted the Europeans with a word which sounded like Tejas. The white men thought the Native Americans were sharing the name of their people or their land, when in fact Tejas meant friend or friendship. The name stuck, and Tejas eventually evolved into the word Texas. Living in a region with plenty of rain, trees, and natural resources, the Caddos were able to use their energies to create villages and agricultural society, rather than merely survive. The fertile land and ample rainfall made the land perfect for farming. By 1250 AD, corn was one, if not the, most important crop. In fact, there were 2 varieties of corn planted at separate times within a year. The little corn was harvested in July, and the flour corn harvested in September. The corn could be prepared by roasting, cooked unhusked on hot ashes, boiled with other vegetables for a dish called succotash, or dried and ground with large wooden pestles and mortars into a flour to make bread, soup, and tortillas. Corn was also dried and used as seed for the upcoming season of planting. Other important plants grown by the Caddo included many types of beans, squash, sunflowers, pumpkins, melons, and tobacco. In addition, the Caddo also foraged wild plants as a source of food, medicine, and dye. A land with plenty of trees, plants, and water also meant a land full of wildlife for hunting. Once the tribe was introduced to horses, they were better able to hunt buffalo and bear. The buffalo provided plenty of meat for their people, and the bear was an excellent source of fat. Other important game included deer, wild hogs, and many types of birds. The Caddo were successful fishermen as well, They used trot lines, short baited hook and lines attached to one big fishing line, to catch freshwater fish in the area. It is interesting to study the typical dress of particular Native American tribes, as the covering and accessories reflect the plants and animals available in the territory and within their environment. Caddo men wore breechcloths made of animal hide, and the women wore deerskin blouses and shirts, fringed and decorated with colorful seeds along the bottom. The ladies were also known to wear breechcloths, but their underwear was made of straw and grass. Both wore soft moccasins for shoes. Hair was oiled and parted down the middle, and the women tied their hair with red-dyed skins from snakes and rabbits. The men either wore their hair short with a long section down the middle, which sometimes hung to their waist, with feathers attached, or shaved with all but a thin band of hair between their forehead and the back of their neck. Men and women adorned their pierced noses and ears with shells, bones, teeth, and feathers, and decorated their bodies and faces with elaborate tattoos. Even during prehistoric times, the Caddo had an unusually complex social system. The people lived in villages or smaller hamlets with a common ceremonial center. Their ceremonial center was home to the familiar earthen mounds used for fire mounds and burials. Spiritual leaders helped tribal members communicate with the supreme god Caddo and assisted with important rites of the harvest and naming ceremonies. The Caddo also worked together as a community to provide shelter for one another. In just one day, the village members could build a house, while the new homeowner's family prepared a feast to treat the rest of the village once the house raising was complete. The men would set up tall cedar poles in a circle up to 40 feet high and tie them at the top, leaving a hole for smoke from the inside fire to escape. These poles were then covered with bundles of dried grass, giving the home the appearance of a giant beehive. Most families owned one large home with two smaller huts for work and food storage. Their beds were reed mats raised off the floor by forked sticks and covered with deer or buffalo skins. The Caddo were not only skilled farmers, they were also known for their ability to peacefully trade with both Europeans and other Indians. Even during prehistoric times, it is believed the Caddo participated in long-distance trade. Common bartering items included turquoise, copper, bison hides, salt, bois-d'arc bows, and of course their beautiful and well-made pottery. In addition to creating pottery, these skilled Caddo craftsmen and women wove reed mats, rugs, and baskets. They also created and used bows and arrows, made from the strong bois-d'arc wood found nearby. Tools were normally constructed from wood found in the forest or bones from animals, such as buffalo shoulder blades for hoes. Instruments for ceremonies were made from gourds for rattles, bird bones and hollow reeds for flute-type instruments, and deer skin and hollow logs for drums. Sadly, by the early 1800s, few Caddo remained in Texas. Many had died either from diseases brought to Texas by explorers and settlers or by war. By 1859, the small number of Caddos left were moved by the U.S. government to the Indian Territory in Oklahoma. This peaceful, friendly tribe likely provided a pleasant introduction to explorers and settlers entering Texas. A successful society of farmers and traders, the Caddos used their natural resources effectively and left behind artifacts and amazing ceremonial mounds of their ancestors.